Hey there, Silver Recaps here. Watch out. The story begins in a house deep in the middle of a forest. Inside, an old woman is seen washing clothes soaked in blood. Hanging on the walls are photos of her two children. Just then, a postman arrives and knocks on the gate, but the old woman doesn't answer. Thinking no one is home, the postman turns to leave, but suddenly, he hears a strange noise coming from the basement. Curious, he sets his bag aside and peers down into the basement. What he sees terrifies him. He wants to run, but before he can escape, something drags him down into the darkness. From here, the story jumps 30 years ahead. Now, we see a campsite deep in the same forest. This camp is for teenagers who are completely obsessed with their phones. They've been brought here as part of a program designed to break their screen addiction. As soon as they arrive, the camp manager collects all their phones, making sure they disconnect from the outside world. Meanwhile, we return to the same house, where the same old woman still lives, just as she did 30 years ago when she was washing blood-soaked clothes. This time, she has hunted a deer and drags its body down into the basement. But there's something strange about that basement. As she moves, her foot suddenly slips and she tumbles down. Whatever was lurking in that basement for all these years finally gets its chance. It kills the old woman and escapes into the world. The next morning, we shift back to the campsite. Today, all the teenagers are set to go on a long trekking trip. A guide is assigned to lead them. Before they leave, a priest arrives to say a prayer for them. The trek is expected to last 3 days, and now their journey begins. Among the group is a girl named Josiah. On her arm, there's a strange scar, a deep cut that she keeps hidden from everyone. The truth is, Josiah has been struggling with depression. As she stands alone, a boy named Zulek approaches her, trying to start a conversation. But Josiah doesn't pay much attention to him. She seems lost in her own world. As they continue their journey, they suddenly come across a deer that has just been killed. The guide immediately becomes alert and warns them that a large predator might be nearby. But in reality, she has noticed something unusual. This kill doesn't seem to be the work of an animal. It looks like a human might have done it. However, she keeps this observation to herself and decides to ignore it for now. The group spends the entire day trekking through the wilderness. As night falls, they set up camp at a resting spot. Their guide also serves as their counselor. Most of these teenagers are strangers to each other, and this trek is meant to break their addiction to mobile phones and help them reconnect with the real world. To encourage them, the guide gives a motivational talk. As they sit around, talking and getting to know each other, a wolf suddenly appears near their campsite. Everyone is terrified, except for Josiah. Without hesitation, she steps forward and drives the wolf away. After the commotion settles, the group finally goes to sleep. But later that night, one of the boys sneaks out of his tent. He has secretly kept his phone with him. As he scrolls through social media, something eerie emerges from the darkness. A shadowy figure with a strange, inhuman form appears. Whatever it is, it's definitely not human. Before the boy can react, the creature grabs him and takes him away. Meanwhile, Josiah has a nightmare about a moment from her past. She remembers being in the car with her mom. Her mother was trying to take a selfie when suddenly, everything went wrong. The car crashed. Josiah's eyes snap open, pulling her back to reality. At the same time, their guide is searching for the missing boy, the one who was taken by that strange creature last night. She asks the others if anyone knows where he went. Josiah looks around and notices something disturbing: bloodstains on a tree. She calls the others over and insists they need to find him as soon as possible. Determined, Josiah, Zulek, and their guide head into the forest, following the trail. Eventually, they reach a house, the same house where the old woman used to live. As they step inside, a foul stench fills the air. They soon spot a door leading down to the basement. Summoning their courage, they descend the stairs, and what they find sends chills down their spines. There, lying lifeless, is the body of their missing friend, the same boy who was killed the night before. Panic sets in, and they rush to get out of the house. But before they can escape, the creature suddenly appears. With no other choice, they scramble back down into the basement. Thinking fast, the guide helps Josiah and Zulek escape through a window. But just as she's about to climb out herself, the monstrous figure steps in front of her. The creature doesn't hesitate. It kills the guide right then and there. Terrified, Josiah and Zulek take off, running for their lives. Meanwhile, by the lake, two of their friends are sitting together. They have no idea about the danger approaching them. Suddenly, the creature appears. Before they can react, it attacks, killing the girl instantly. Seeing this, the boy panics and runs for his life. He sprints through the forest, desperately trying to escape, until he finally stumbles into a church. Inside, he finds the same priest who had prayed for them before their journey. Before the boy can explain anything, the priest knocks him unconscious. When he wakes up, he realizes he's tied to a chair. Confused and terrified, he looks around, struggling to understand what's happening. The priest stares at him and says, "I know exactly how to fix kids like you. This new generation needs discipline." Just then, the generator outside suddenly switches on by itself. The priest steps outside to check what's going on, but he's not alone. The creature has followed the boy all the way to the church, and now it's here. The moment the priest steps outside, the monster attacks, killing him instantly. Then it makes its way into the church. The boy, desperate to survive, hides inside the confessional booth, but it's no use. The creature spots him and drags him away. Meanwhile, Josiah and Zulek are still running, trying to escape. As they push forward, they finally spot a house in the distance. With no other option, they run toward it. Outside, they find a man who invites them in. They hesitate. Something about him feels off, but with nowhere else to go, they have no choice. They step inside. Inside the house, the old man looks at them and says, "I know exactly what you're running from." Josiah hesitates for a moment before asking, "What is it?" The old man sighs and begins telling them a story. Many years ago, a woman lived here with her 2 sons. One day, a meteor fell from the sky, crashing into the forest. The 2 boys found it and brought it home, curious about what it was. That night, they placed the meteor under their pillows. But something unnatural happened. A strange liquid seeped out of the meteor and entered their bodies. Slowly, their appearance began to change. They were no longer human. They became monsters. The first thing they did was kill their own dog. When their mother realized what had happened, she was horrified. To protect the world from them, she locked both of her sons in the basement. And if they've escaped now, that means their mother is dead. Up until now, Josiah and Zulek thought they were running from a single monster. But the truth is, there are 2 of them. The old man continues, "You see, I wasn't always an old man. I was the postman who came to this house 30 years ago. When I knocked on the door, something pulled me into the basement. Somehow, I survived." He then looks at them and says, "You can stay here if you want." But Josiah doesn't want to stay. She is determined to escape this forest at any cost. She suddenly remembers something. The first boy who was killed, his body is still in the basement. He had a phone with him. That phone is their only chance to call for help. The nearest town is 2 days away. By the time they get there, the creatures could kill them. There's only one option left. Josiah makes up her mind. She's going into the basement. Zulek immediately protests, telling her it's too dangerous. But she doesn't listen. With no other choice, Zulek is forced to go with her. Somehow, they manage to make their way down into the basement and retrieve the phone. But before they can escape, the creature spots them. It lunges at Josiah, grabbing her by the neck and lifting her off the ground. She struggles to break free, but its grip is too strong. Just then, Zulek attacks from behind, stabbing the creature with a knife. The monster lets out a furious roar. Enraged, it yanks the knife out and then drives it straight into Zulek's body. Josiah watches in horror as he collapses to the ground. Before she can react, the creature knocks her unconscious. When Josiah regains consciousness, she finds Zulek lying in front of her, gravely wounded. His body trembles with pain, and he looks at her with pleading eyes. "Take the knife out," he whispers weakly. Josiah hesitates. She knows that if she removes the knife, he won't survive. She realizes there's no other choice. With a heavy heart, she pulls the knife out. Zulek takes his last breath. Josiah is devastated. Every single person who came to this camp is now dead. She's the only one left, but she refuses to give up. Slowly, she frees herself from her restraints and quietly makes her way upstairs. As she looks around, she notices something terrifying. One of the monsters is asleep. One of the creatures always stays at the house while the other goes out to hunt. This means the one inside is alone. Seizing the opportunity, Josiah quietly grabs a large knife and slowly moves toward it. With one swift motion, she drives the knife deep into the monster, killing it instantly. Without wasting a second, she runs for her life, sprinting through the forest until she finally reaches a road. Just then, she spots a vehicle approaching. It's a park ranger on patrol. The ranger notices her and immediately stops. Gasping for breath, Josiah rushes toward him and frantically explains everything that happened. The ranger listens in shock, clearly disturbed by her story. Without hesitation, he tells her to get in the vehicle. As they drive away, Josiah finally feels a sense of relief until the ranger suddenly slows down. In the middle of the road, there's a lifeless body. The ranger pulls over, determined to check it out. Josiah instantly panics and warns him not to go, but he doesn't listen. Ignoring her protests, he steps out of the vehicle and cautiously approaches the body. The moment he gets close, something moves in the darkness. Before he can react, the second creature, the one that had gone out hunting, emerges from the shadows. It was a trap. The monster had used the body as bait. In an instant, it attacks and kills the ranger. Meanwhile, at a different location, we see the old postman inside his home. Suddenly, there's a knock at his door. Sensing danger, quickly pulls out his gun and fires a shot. He is certain that the creature is outside, but when he steps out to check, he is met with a shocking sight. Lying there is the same boy who had been taken from the church. Somehow, he had managed to escape and fight for his life, but in the end, he didn't make it. He is now lifeless on the ground. Meanwhile, Josiah takes control of the ranger's car. With a firm grip on the wheel, she speeds toward the creature and slams into it with full force. The monster crashes onto the hood, but she doesn't stop. Determined to end this once and for all, she reverses and rams into it again. Over and over, she crushes the creature beneath the car until it stops moving. Finally, after ensuring it's dead, she drives away, leaving the nightmare behind. Later that night, on the same road, two drunken men are seen walking, stumbling forward as they talk and laugh. Tonight, they are celebrating Hitler's birthday, but as they move ahead, they suddenly stop. Lying in the middle of the road is a body, the creature's body. Curious, they approach it, but before they can react, the monster's eyes snap open. It was never truly dead. In an instant, it springs to life and attacks, killing both men in the darkness of the night. Back at the house, we see that the creature's second brother is still alive. This means one thing: killing them isn't that easy. The power they gained from the meteorite isn't ordinary. It's something far beyond human comprehension. Just then, the creature inside the house hears the sound of police sirens approaching. Flashing lights fill the night outside. It already knows what will happen next. Now, it will kill them too. And with that, the story comes to an end.